Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the session today. It's indeed a great evening that we are delighted to have you here today. I hope everyone can hear us from wherever you are. Welcome. Feel free to just type in something on the chat, say hi, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, where you are watching us from, tell us how your day has been. Just say something, interact on the chat. We are looking forward to having an interactive session. It's going to be super. So keep your spirits high. This is the prime time. We're going to do it like the way it's done in the prime times, right? So looking forward to a great session. My name is Joel Juma from Brighter Monday. And with me today, I have very great speakers. We're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, and I believe everyone on the call is curious to just get to know what is it about today. We are here at 7 p.m. It's prime time. It's like we are doing news, but today we are giving you something worthy that is going to elevate your career, is going to elevate your success towards your goals, is going to just ramp you up a step further. So without any further ado, I'd like us to start off the session by asking a question from my side. So feel free to type on the chat. Where are you at in your career level? So tell us, are you still job searching? Have you just started working? Are you exploring career options? We'd really love to know that for us to just proceed. So today, to just help you stand out, we're going to talk about three key topics. We're going to talk about CV writing. I believe everyone on the call, if not all, we have a CV somewhere, right? A CV is basically loosely translated as story of my life, but now we're talking about career-wise, professional-wise, right? We're going to talk about interviews, and also to just add the cherry, we're going to talk about salary negotiation. So we're going to have a Q&A at the end, but right about now, allow me to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker of the day, we're going to have Rose Mende from Brighter Monday. So you'll briefly introduce yourself and just tell us something little about what you're going to talk about today. As well, after that, you're going to have Mr. Sakwa, the one and only, a very renowned gentleman on the call, uh, who is going to also give us bits about what I've just mentioned earlier: CV writing, interviews, and salary negotiation. These are industry experts. Let's begin with Rose Mwende. Kindly, over to you.
Thank you, Joel. And it's great to have all 68 of you on this call. My name is Rose Mende, and I'm the head of recruitment at Brighter Monday. Basically, recruitment, I've been doing recruitment for about 8 years now, but before that, I was in the tech space, so I did a bit of a career transition. So that's something about me that I would say is interesting. And before that, I did about another 8 years in the tech world before I transitioned to be a recruiter. I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy connecting talent with opportunities, and that's why I'm here to have this conversation with you today to see how do we answer your questions around how do you write a CV, how do you prepare for an interview, what are some of the questions to expect, and even as you think of yourself as someone who's at the entry level, or you've just, you've joined the job market, or you're about to join the job market, what are the things you need to look out for? And so we are here to give you that information so that we can see you succeed as you enter the job market. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Indeed, that is quite an introduction. We already know you're wearing very big shoes, and we look forward to just unpacking and hearing more from you. Mr. Sakwa, over to you.
Thank you, Joel. Much appreciated. And indeed, to all the attendees who now are numbering 78 or thereabout, thank you very much for making time to join on the call today. Joel, I'll try and be professional when I'm introducing myself today because I have 9 names in total. So I just give the known 3 names, which are Christopher Saka, the son of Wangara. I have been practicing HR for a while now, but before HR, I'm one person who is a collage when it comes to life. I first studied fashion and interior design, which I practiced briefly, then moved into logistics and distribution and sales, which I did for about 11 years, and then moved full-time into HR, which I have been doing since the year 2012. How many years are those? I'm forgetting. So I've been playing in the space of HR largely from 2015, that is, as a consultant. So I've been doing consulting, and part of what we have been helping clients do is recruitment. So we have been on that other side of the table. And for people that are looking forward to polish themselves and ready themselves for such conversations, and this is the place to be. But beyond that, also, in those interview rooms, we like to, quote unquote, roast the applicants by getting to ask them some uncomfortable questions. This is a forum where we get to unpack some of those questions and how you could navigate or what to expect or what we as recruiters would be looking for. So let's talk matters, salary, how do you navigate that question? How do you go about the interview itself, which has really metamorphed over time because previously it was something else. And we will unpack this as we go on. Back to you, Joel.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Sakwa. I heard you mention something, and it's something that intrigues me. So it looks like interviewers sometimes will ask you a question to just throw you off, to roast you. That's the word you've used, intentionally, to just see how you're going to perform under pressure. And since you're in the room, we're going to unpack more about that. But just before we get to that side, that depth of interviewing, I'll start with Rose. Being a recruiter, there is this interesting line that we like talking about when you are talking about CV. And here we're talking about how you are trying to write your CV so that you can get noticed, right? So they say a recruiter will take roughly 5 to 6 seconds to know if they really want to look into the CV or not. So what is this that recruiters look for in the 6 seconds? Rose, if you can just unpack that for us.
That's a very, very good question, and thank you for that question. So as a recruiter, what we tend to look at when you look at a CV, the first 6 seconds, the layout of the CV and sort of like get a lay of the land. How is this CV structured, and what is the information I'm looking for? And the information I'm looking for is the work experience, work history, where the person has worked, the title, the company, and a description of the role they've had or achievements, and then I look at education. So I think in those 6 seconds, like doing a scan of the CV, if it's 2-3 pages, then those are the things I would be looking for as a recruiter.
There we have it. That's interesting. I never thought it's that brief, because my initial expectation will be to just skim through and maybe see if there's something I can pick out. But you've really put it in a way that has unmasked what you really look out for. For the next part, I'm going to ask Mr. Sakwa. So if I'm trying to structure my CV, what can be a real breakdown of the areas that Rose has already mentioned a bit about it. So I'll love for Mr. Sakwa to just dive in and just break it further for us. A real example of the breakdown. Just start and run over through it.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you, Rose, for your response to that. If I was to add anything to Rose's response before I even delve into a sample or an outlay that we'll be looking for in a CV, I would say first impressions count. I would say your CV needs to be appealing to not just my eyes, but also my intellect. So I desire to look through it. Because I can look at the top page and decide I'm not interested. I'm assuming that I'm doing the long listing, short listing myself. It's not an ATS that is doing that. If I'm the one doing it, then I want something that will interest me, that would call me over to dig in a little more. So there's so much in terms of even the outlay, the headings, the bullet points you have used. How does it look? If it looks good, I definitely want to have a look at it again. But if you just jumbled up things and threw them in there in the CV, I may not have the time to read through, because probably I'm just recruiting for a role like, let me give an easy example. I'm recruiting for an intern, and I have received 150 applications or CVs. And I just want to shortlist 6 that I'm going to interview. If it's not appealing, I may not look twice. So the outlay also is important. I thought I'd add that. But the other thing that personally I would quickly look out for also is your skills profile. Because we have an appreciation that today people are not hiring largely for skills, knowledge, and abilities per se, but skills stand out. The knowledge, that's something else. The experience, that's something else. But what are you bringing on the table? And you're seeing even multinationals today saying, we are not looking for your papers. Can you do it? Yes, come. Try it. You do it, we hire you. So skills would be an important one for me. So you definitely need to package your CV so the skills speak to, and we'll be coming to that, the job you're applying for. So for those of you who've been having generic CVs, we need to talk. So what would you have in a typical CV? So of course, we need to know who it is you are. So the header or the contact information becomes the very first. And please give us information that is enough for the job or for the position you're applying for. By this, what do I mean? Unless if the job that has been advertised is asking for details like, we're looking for someone who is married, we're looking for a Christian, we're looking for a Kenyan, we are looking for a male or female, unless the job asks for such qualifications or specifications, then please spare us the trouble. How about you just tell us, Christopher Saka, HR practitioner, email sakwawangara@gmail.com, telephone contact, blah, 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 LinkedIn profile. That's enough. But we end up having so much. Anyway, that is one, contact. 2, what's your professional summary? So you want to quickly just give us one paragraph, if you can, in about 50 or so words of your experience. Who are you? So I am a HR practitioner. I have experience in 1, 2, 3 things, and I'm looking to put my skills and expertise into practice in XYZ company, that kind of thing. So briefly, what's your professional summary? Then tell us your skills. And like I said, those skills had better speak to the job at hand. So I cannot start talking of driving skills for a position that has nothing to do with driving. And if I'm applying for a driver's job role, then I must definitely talk about that as a skill that I possess. Or if it was an added advantage, then I want to highlight that. So what are your skills? And you want to probably split them. You want to have soft skills, you want to have technical skills, you can put them in there. And then most importantly, your experience. And you had better do a good job when you're putting this together. People neglect the smallest of things, but those are the things that knock them off the short listing or long listing. So you, for example, just don't pay attention to the chronology in the CV. You start with the job that was first, and then you want to end with the job that you currently are holding or the position you probably are currently holding. The order has to be in reverse. Which is your current one? And then let's work backward. So that becomes important. And when you're doing that, Be sure to let us know which position you held, the name of the organization, which position you held, and most importantly, which is what I advise people to do, your accomplishments or achievements on the role. Because sometimes we fill the CVs with roles and responsibilities of that position, some of which we never really did. And when you come to the interview and I ask you about that role and responsibility, you bite your tongue. Tongue in cheek. Please, let's be sure to write what we achieved. And if as a recruiter, I have questions about that, then I may ask those questions and ask, so what exactly was your role? It gives you an opportunity to have a conversation with me. But if you have everything laid out on the CV and I have 10 pages of your CV, I may as well just read the CV and either give you the job or not. So professional experience, very important. Then we can talk of education. And that's also equally important. Again, the format must be reverse chronology. Then other sections you may want to put in there the certifications, publications, if you have any publications, volunteer work, and those other things that you need. And then last but not least, I would appreciate if I had the referees. But there's practice today of people saying referees will be availed on request. Conversation for another day. So Joel, in a nutshell, those are the sections that I would expect to see in a CV that would then help me as a recruiter to have a conversation with the potential candidate.
Thank you so much. Allow me to just pull you back in. When it comes to referees, what will be your highest recommendation? Because nowadays with data privacy, the 2019 Act of Data Privacy, it kind of shuns candidates from putting in their referees, because in case of data breach, for example, I've put a referee, say my CEO. In case my CV finds itself somewhere that is not supposed to be, and there's a data breach, so the data privacy kind of encourages us not to have the referees on the CV. What will be the best practice from your perspective?
Let me probably say this differently. Thank you for bringing up the data privacy conversation and the Act. It definitely expects that you should not share information that is personally identifiable anyhow, except with the consent of the person involved. So if I ask my referee that I put their name, their phone, and their email on my CV, and they are okay with it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, if they are not aware and I put them there and then something happens and the Gen Zs decide to salimia the guy someday because you gave access to the number, then that becomes a different conversation. So I would say, unless the referees are okay with it, then don't put such detail. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. I believe it's a bit clearer now of how it goes. I'll give it back to the audience just before we proceed to the next segment by asking a very simple question. If you are listening right now or you're watching us from wherever you are, kindly just type in the chat and tell us what are your biggest CV struggles. We'll be happy to look at them. Some of them will be addressed here. And also just to give a shout to everyone who is actively listening and participating on the chat. I can see Patricia Gashuki, they're saying they're looking for a job. No worries, you're in the right path to that. We have Ryan, they're trying to condense their CV into a resume. That's someone they're trying, that's an area they're struggling with. We'll be able to address that because I know some people will call it a CV, some will call it a resume. I see Odiambo Elizabeth saying they're struggling around ATS compliance. And then there's someone called Brian Ouko. You're saying revamping your CV to match your job description. I believe the previous conversation has kind of shaped how you're approaching this now. Emmanuel, thank you so much for your sentiments. Masi Tanui is asking a question. We'll look at that. We have Mary, you're struggling around profile summary, skills. You're also mentioning a bit about just how to make it work. around that area. Someone is talking about being salimiwad. So they're asking if is it unfair for recruiters to use referral section as well. We'll be addressing that. I believe there's more. Keep them coming. Gerald, thank you so much. Stacy, thank you so much. Thank you for being active on the session. We'll be moving over to the next segment, and we're going to talk about interviews. And when it comes to interviews, I believe Rose has conducted quite a number of them. I believe she'll be able to give us just a rough figure of how many interviews she's conducted. And we're going to ask about how to just prepare for interviews. If you can just break it down in the simplest way possible. If I have an interview tomorrow, I want to prepare. How do I go about it? Over to you, Rose.
Thank you, Joel. So when we are looking at you've been invited for an interview, say you've gotten an email or a phone call inviting you for an interview. Number one is to if it's physical, there's physical interviews and then there's online interviews. So how you prepare for each is almost similar, but in terms of how you show up is kind of different. So in terms of preparing for the interview, whether it's online or physical, the first thing to do is check the job description. What exactly was the role you applied for? What are the skills that it was asking for? What was that job description? Sometimes you find that you've applied for so many jobs and you don't remember. I'll call you and I'll tell you, oh, I'm calling you from this company. Which company? So it's important to just go back and do your research. Research the company, look at the job description. And when you're researching the company, is check their website if they have a website. Some are still kind of relying on social media, LinkedIn specifically to just talk about who they are. But most companies have a legit website. So look at their website. Who works there? Who's the owner of the company or the CEO? What does that look like? And understand what do they do? Generally, roughly, what do they really do? You'll find that sometimes someone will attend an interview and, you'll be asked, tell us what you know about our company. And you didn't do your research. You didn't, or tell us what you think about our products or what we do. And you have no idea because you didn't do your research. So you also do research about the company and resources you can use, websites, you can use LinkedIn. And sometimes some organizations have news articles a day that they write. So also read some of those articles just to know who are these people that I'm going to interview with in terms of the company. It's important also, in some cases, some interviewers will ask you, do you resonate with our mission or our vision? So at least have an idea of what that would look like. Because as Chris was saying, it can be it's a boiling room. You're being asked questions just to test to see how prepared you are or to test certain type of skills or if you can even operate under so much pressure in terms of the questions they ask you. So prepare, read, mention sometimes to sort of like spice the conversation. You could prepare based on what you've researched, what it is that you think is interesting or what you find as curious about the organization, just to advance the conversation so that it shows you have that initiative, that you have that interest in the company. Then the other thing to check, so after you research the company, then associate that company with the role. If it's a sales executive role, if it's an internship, if it's an attachment, if it's a graduate program, try and see what does this role, what does this job description say about working in this organization? Because you have an understanding of the company, then you're like, okay, what would a salesperson do in this role? Or what would an accounting officer do in this role? And then sort of like envision that role and kind of understand what the role is all about. So look at the job description, look at the skills required. The skills required could both be technical or soft skills. So technical skills, for example, if it's in, an accounting, it's, do you have a good understanding of accounting principles, for example? If it's very, very entry level, like fresh graduate type, you'll probably be asked about the theoretical side of it, or if you've done a bit of internship, some of the things you did around that. So look at the skills, the roles and responsibilities, and see from your experience or from your interaction, if you're a fresh graduate, if you did a bit of internship or attachment, are there things that you did that relate with some of the things that this job description is asking? Say, for example, just to maybe give it a bit of context, if the role is asking that you are familiar with Excel as a skill, think about a time when in your internship or in your studies where you utilized Excel so that you can use that as an example. So that's the second thing. So research about the company, look at the job description through and through. Then you can practice. Practice is important, some of the questions that could be asked, things like, tell me about yourself, why would you want to work for us? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? There's some questions you'll be asked that will catch you off guard. So you can prepare about some of those questions. You can also, as a way of preparing for the interview, prepare some questions you can ask the panelists so that it shows that you're actually really, really interested in that particular role. Then you highlight some of the skills that you have. So if you're a fresh graduate, obviously that work history may not necessarily be so rich. Maybe you have 6 months or 3 months or 8 months. So really capitalize on the soft skills that you gained in your schoolwork. If you did a project, if you did an internship or an attachment, really capitalize on some of the soft skills that could be transferred to that particular role and talk about them in the interview. So those are some of the ways you could prepare, and relax. Don't be too nervous. Just as you're reading, just have that level of interest. I'm really interested in this company. Let me learn. And that will take away a bit of the anxiety that would come with preparing for an interview. I think those are the things that I would say are critical.
Awesome. You've given more than enough, actually, because I wanted to ask just a follow-up question. There's this technique most I've had most people around career improvement talk about. They call it the STAR technique, where you have the situation, task, action, and result. How can you expound a bit around that area? Because it's something that we're usually told. If you use this in an interview scenario, you will mostly likely hack it.
So when you're asked a question, especially if it's a scenario or a behavioral question, say you're asked, tell me about a time when you experienced a challenge and how did you resolve it? So that's like a scenario or a behavioral kind of question. So when you're talking about using the STAR technique, you describe the situation that you are in that particular, problem or challenge. So for instance, you can say something like, when I was doing my internship, we had a project and last minute, one of my colleagues fell ill and we had to execute the project fully without them because they dropped off and they were a critical part of the team. So that's the situation. Then you come to the task. What was the task? In that project, you were supposed to work on a financial report that was due by end of that week, and it had critical components that needed collaboration with other departments. Then you say, what is the action? That's the A. So we've covered the situation, we've covered the task, then we look at the action. So what action did you take? What was your part in that resolution of that problem? So you could say something like, I took charge of a small component of that reporting, and I went and talked to the different department heads and requested for the information, and I was able to collate that and submitted it to the head of department for analysis. So you see, it's showing that you took initiative and you saw a problem and you went ahead and resolved it. Then you say, the R is the result. What was the result of that? Obviously that the department had enough data to be able to present the report by end of the week. So that's a simple way to look at it. But the STAR model is, you may not necessarily follow it through and through, because sometimes you'll be asked a question in an interview. You won't think in your mind, oh, let me do the STAR technique. No, it's, are you able to really talk about give an example from your experience, because it's a lived experience. You're the one who knows the story. You're the storyteller of that situation or of that scenario where you have to respond to the interviewer. So you just think about, how do I respond to this question in the best way possible to convey the message that I can be able to do the job. Then you give scenarios and just talk about, key important thing is to describe the scenario and talk about the result and what you did, your part in it. So that way it gives you a good model to actually tell the story in a way that has maximum impact to the interviewer.
Wow, that's amazing. When you're talking about interviews, we know there are some common questions that usually come up. And for this part, like Mr. Sakwa, you've been around this space for quite some time. Give us like 3 common questions that will definitely not miss out in an interview scenario. So we'd love to hear what are some of these questions. Just highlight 3 or so, or you can go to a higher number you think will be beneficial to us. We'd love to hear from you. Mr. Sakwa, take it away.
I love this question because much as these questions are common, we expect them when we get into the interview room and we are asked the question, we all of a sudden are unable to answer. Okay, what are some of the common questions? Tell us about yourself. That is, I think that's the most common one, or the one that opens the conversations. Tell us about yourself. Who is Chris Sakwa? Tell us about you. So many of us are unable to answer that question. I will leave that there. The other question that I also find a bit common is you're asked to describe how you take or you handle constructive criticism. Or you are asked to give an illustration of a situation, just like Rose has said, that you went through and what the outcome was and the learnings therein. Or you could be asked, and many people also ask this, where do you see yourself in blah, blah, in 2, 3 years or 5 years? Where do you see yourself? Another common question would be, why should we hire you? Why you and not anyone else? I could go on and on, Joel, but those are some of the common ones that I would say that are bound to appear in any given interview. But there are many others, like I could ask how you handle pressure, how you handle stress, especially if the role I'm recruiting for would require you to work under pressure. I would definitely want to know how you handle that. The other question that I have avoided saying, but it's itching me, how much money do you expect? Back to you, Joel.
Okay, that's very interesting because if we are, say, focusing on, there's something they say, if it's something entry level, for entry level roles, they usually tell you to just work with the budget so that when they're asking a question of how much do you expect, you shouldn't overquote. For example, if the job description said a rough figure, say 30,000, you're not supposed to quote like 40,000 or 50,000 because that might be a reason to just help you cut down the number of people you wish to proceed with the interview. How will you address that?
So when you're asked how much do you expect, the assumption here to start with is, like Rose mentioned, you did some due diligence when you're preparing for the interview. And part of that diligence would be wanting to know and establish how much this role would pay. Probably not just in the specific organization, but in the industry. Or generally speaking, you know, a clerk takes home this much. It may not be as difficult to find some of this information in the corporate space, a bit of a challenge, but something to get you started Is government pay grades available for all? That's a place to start. So, you know, in government, a clerk earns this much, or this level of clerk earns this much. So I would expect that in the corporate space, it could be that, if not more. So you have a range within which to play. People make mistakes when they're asked this question, to consider it a blank check that is going to solve all their problems. So you decide it's a clerical position you're applying for, but you ask how much do you expect, and you confidently say 100,000. Well, it's good to dream. How about you just do due diligence? And you know a clerk's position is in the range of 30 to 50,000 shillings, and you want to play within that range. Don't look at this as an opportunity that is going to fix all your problems, and you have a blank check to just write in the amount because it's already signed. You want to be careful in how you respond to that question. How much do you expect? That had better speak to, if it's an entry job, then you probably don't have an earning as we speak. And they ask that, having done your diligence, then you can play within that range of the budget or the general salary that is paid in the industry or in the market for that position. So you may want to play safe within that space. Else, like you have said, Joel, that would be an opportunity for me to say, this one expects too much money. Wachana na we. I could easily just drop you and say, this one is too ambitious. He doesn't even know what he is asking for, you know. So play safe. Do your diligence. Know how much this role would attract and play within that range. That's how I would respond to that, Joel.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful. I am also going to rope in Rose to just give us a bit about salary benchmarking. How do you negotiate, or how do you benchmark your salary basing on the fact that there's this interesting line that says, negotiating is not really rude, but it can be smart in a way. So if you can just unpack for us, how can we best benchmark? Just take your time, expound on it. I know you've already mentioned a thing or two about it, but now is the time for us to now take a deeper dive into it. We're already taking notes on the same. Over to you, Rose.
Yeah, so I think just to add to what Chris was, talking about, where to kind of look for data. There are several resources. So when you're thinking about that salary question, because it will be expected that when you go for an interview, you'll be asked that question. So you ask yourself, in my journey, where am I at? Number one, if I'm just fresh from campus, or I have 1 year of experience, or I have 2 years of experience, or 3 years of experience, look at, there are various data sources that you can use. There's the government option that Chris has mentioned. Even our BrighterMonday website, we've had so many jobs in the past. You could check and see what would typically a role that has 0 to 1 year of experience. What does that typically pay? If it's an internship position, what does that typically pay? If it's 2 years of experience, what does that typically pay? So that then you can use that as your benchmark. When you talk about benchmarking, is what are the industry standards, or what are the industry salary, like industry salary data that we can use. And sometimes if you just Google salaries in Kenya for this type of role, so I would say don't use just one data source. Try and get from a few data sources, especially when you're up at the point of applying for a role. Because I think I've seen a question around, if you're called like right now at 7:30 p.m. and you're told, come for an interview tomorrow at 10 a.m., you probably will not have enough time to say, I'm going to research about the company, research about the job description, research about the salary. I think when you're applying for the role, it's important for you to know at that point, where am I at in my career journey, and what do I really want, and what are the market rates? And you have different data points that you can use. You can do a Google search, you can go to the government data that is available, you can check LinkedIn, you can check job search platforms like BrighterMonday website, so that then you can have different data points and say, okay, based on what I have seen, I could work with this particular average, and then use that to now go and ask for that figure during your interview, because you'll be asked, what are your salary expectations? And sometimes the questions would be, what is your current salary if you're already working, or what was your last salary if you're working and you're now job hunting, like in that space of job hunting, and what your expectations would be. So you should be able to be confident to say what your ask is. And some of the things you could add is, but I'm open to negotiation, or I'm willing to work within the budget that is set for the role for the organization, but this is where I would start from, and sort of like open it for discussion. So that's what I would say when you're looking at salary benchmarking, when you're doing that for yourself as a job seeker.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I'm also trying to go through our Q&A already, because some interesting questions are coming in related to what we've already covered. And it will be awesome if we try go over them, as assuming waiting for the end of the call. We might not go over everything. Some of the questions might take us back, and but it's still some interesting nuggets coming in. So someone is trying to ask, how can I explain my employment gaps? We'll address that in a few. Let me see if there's something related to salary, because that's what we are tackling right now, before we just proceed. So I see something about current salary. So if, for example, we say my current salary is too low, and I'm going for something a bit higher, is there a way I can justify that jump? If Mr. Saka or Rose can take that kindly. So if the current...
I would gladly jump onto that one, Joel. So I'm earning, let me just give an illustration. So I'm earning 20,000. And the position I'm applying for would probably pay 50,000. So you're asking, how do I justify moving from 20 to 50,000, right? If that is the question, then the answer is, it's my skills, my capabilities, my abilities that are earning me that jump. And I should be proud of myself. If they have seen something in me, we have seen people triple their salaries. We headhunt people and double their salaries. They don't have to justify. And what I like saying is people have said HR practitioners or HR professionals hire and fire people. I wish to debunk that myth and say we don't hire. We facilitate you. So you literally sell yourself and we facilitate you into the organization. And when you misbehave, we facilitate you out. We don't fire you. You fire yourself. So even in earning this jump in my pay, I have earned it. There is literally no need for me to justify anything. If the organization is paying 50,000 and they want me on the job, I will not tell them, no, by the way, I'm earning 20,000. I think 50 will be too much. Just give me 30. No, take the 50. That's what's on offer. Just take it. No apologies. You're the person for the job. So really, you don't have to scratch your head about having to justify how will I justify moving from 20 to 50. That's what they are offering. You take it. Joel.
Awesome. Still on the same matter. Someone is asking, this was a certain career coach saying we should avoid quoting our previous salaries when asked in an interview. Any insights on how you can tackle this instead?
Okay, so some recruiters, I want to unfortunately say this, are not the best out here. I mean, why would I ask you your salary? Let me just play devil's advocate. Why would I ask you how much you earn? I'd rather ask how much you're expecting, to just figure out if you did some research, some homework to know generally how much this position attracts. It's not a question that is going to knock you off, but I just want to appreciate that you did your homework. And so that's why I'm asking, how much do you expect? That way I know you did your homework, because you'll give me a salary that is within what we are offering. Then I'd know this guy knows their stuff. But if you are asked how much are you earning currently, the Data Privacy Act actually protects you. You can respectfully decline to respond to that question. You can decline to respond to the question.
Ah, awesome, awesome. Is this the part where you say I signed an NDA? Just in case. I saw a meme somewhere.
But if you're okay answering the question, then again, that's up to you. You probably think what you're earning is close to what these guys are paying or what they're about to offer, so it's no brainer. Then that's okay, you can answer the question. But many of us have been found in that space where you are having to answer this question and you end up lying.
Awesome, awesome.
And some of this, and you're saying you're in organization A. I don't need to tell you that I know the HR of that organization. We are a small circle. I can find out HR so-and-so. What's your salary for this position? They tell me 50K, and you said you're earning 150. What does that do to you in terms of your credibility? So if you can refrain from it, please do. If not, and you're comfortable answering, why not? Joel, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Claire, and anyone else who had a question around that, I hope it has been responded well. There's something that also comes up when you're talking about salaries. And I'd like to leverage the experience of Rose and ask, what are some of phrases that someone can use when you're talking about your expectations? Maybe some of the lines, because in the interview world, you've had a lot of such phrases. This is the time to debunk what we should say, what we shouldn't say. And also in the same note, on the chat, kindly tell us, when you negotiated for the salary, how did it go? Over to you, Rose.
Yeah, that salary conversation is always a tricky one, to be honest. And I would say for me as a recruiter, I usually just ask direct, just tell me what your salary expectation is, without any fluff around it. But because we don't have many roses around as well, sometimes you can be in an interview situation, there's a panel and they're asking you what are your salary expectations. So when you're giving the amount, you can add something like, based on my experience and the skills, because as Chris is saying, you have to be confident in what you're offering. Remember, you as an employee or a potential employee to someone, the thing you're bringing to the table is your expertise. Whether it's 1 year worth of expertise or 10 years worth of expertise or 15 years worth of expertise, but you're bringing expertise to the table nonetheless. And sort of like that ability to learn and all that. So it's being confident in saying, I'm expecting a salary of 50,000. And this is, based out of my experience and the skills that I have and what I feel I can add to the organization, but also how I can contribute to the vision and goals of the organization. And so using such a phrase is, you've really thought about that figure and you can kind of convince them that it's not even convincing, as Chris is saying, you don't really need to convince. It's just that you're confident that that is the amount that that you'd want to be paid, and you know what you're bringing to the table. Some people will also add, my expectation is 50,000, but I'm open to negotiating based on company policy and salary grades that you have in the organization. So those are the two common ones that I have seen in the market. However, I really encourage that it's important to just be straightforward and not add too much fluff into it. Because if the figure is 50K, it's 50K. If the figure is 20, it's 30, it is that figure. And so you can just kind of open it up for discussion. I'm open to discussing. Then that makes it easy for someone to say, okay, we can discuss. And the unfortunate thing is that because, we have different hiring managers and different HR people in the market, there are those who have different ways of tackling that salary conversation. So sometimes you'll find those who are very, if you say 50 and their budget was say 40, they'll be like, okay, you're out. But I think when you open it up and say, I am willing to discuss, then it facilitates, that channel to be able to talk about it, depending on who is open to that kind of conversation.
That has been quite impactful to the conversation because we are kind of working with two engines. We are having some experience from Mr. Saka. Rose is also here. So we are kind of on the winning advantage. Now, this is an interesting segment. At Brighter Monday, we have the platform, right? It's not just a jobs platform. It has interesting features in it. And one of the most interesting feature in Brighter Monday that is very new, this is where you do a round of applause. We have AI career tool. I know everyone is speaking AI. We have AIs that help us crafting letters or emails. So we have introduced the Brighter Monday AI career tool. It's available on your Brighter Monday profile. So make sure you've signed up to brightermonday.co.ke. Go to your CV services. Under my CV services, professional CV services that are offered there, you'll see AI career tool. Under that, we have a CV builder. So as much as we are also showing you how to do your CV right, you can also go and practice. It's more like a sandpit where you can play around. So it will help you build your CV using insights that you've drawn from this session. It can also create mock interviews. And also on top of that, it can help you negotiate your salary. It's something very interesting. You should check out. But just before you go there, start off from the career, the path of Brighter Monday Learning, where we have courses. So take at least one course. It will take you about an hour. Take a soft skill course, for instance. Once you complete it, you'll have a free access to the career tool. So that's your next step. Ensure that when you leave this call, in your own free time or in your time, just ensure you work through that, complete a course, then access the tool. It will help with salary negotiation. It will help with building your CV. It will help you in creating a mock interview scenario. We've already talked about interviews, and it will be really nice for you to just type in these questions, and then the system will kind of generate you the most appropriate answers. But at the same time, leverage so much on the information that we've gotten from this session. Nice. So let's proceed over to Q&A. We are going to address most of your questions because I see we still have a lot of time and we have great minds on the session. They've decided to give us their evening. So you're going to make sure we squeeze the juice to the last drop. So I'm going to just quickly go over the questions. I can see someone asking, why is it that when I apply for a job, recruiters do not contact us? That is Brian Ocheng. Mr. Saka, why don't you contact candidates? If you can just highlight some of the reasons as we go on. Over to you.
Okay, so, and in my response, I will probably cover another question I saw somewhere.
Awesome.
Today, some of the applications we do not land in the hands of humans. They are processed through technology. There's something called applicant tracking system. So we shared the job, we shared the JD for the job. You write your cover letter, you attach your CV, the system matches your application and CV to the JD or what we put out there, and then it ends up long listing or short listing. It will be unfair for us as recruiters not to reach out to you. Within my practice, what I ensure I do is I respond to candidates. Those that were unsuccessful get an email, a regret that they were unsuccessful. And those that are successful then definitely get their communication on what next. But why people do not respond, not even with a regret, it's unfortunate if that happens, because it should not. Of course, the implied meaning is that you didn't qualify. You were not shortlisted for various reasons. If your application and CV was not ATS compliant, there's a problem. Or if your CV, like we say, didn't catch me in the first 6 seconds, then I put it on the side. I didn't get to look at it deeper because it didn't interest me. Or your cover letter is, I can tell, a generic one. It is not speaking to this position. So you're sending an application for the sake of it, but you haven't internalized it and spoken the language of the potential employer. So those are some of the things that would probably make you miss out on being longlisted or shortlisted. But as to the question of you not being contacted, I think that is just bad manners on the part of recruiters. Allow me to apologize on behalf of the recruiters who have not been responding, because we should be getting back to you with a regret or something, even if you didn't qualify. That's my answer, Joel.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. I'll give this to Rose. Some of the questions that are asked in interviews. So there's this question that is usually asked: why do you think you're a good fit for this role? And why should we pick you? How can someone just address that in a few words? The few words that like trigger the recruiter or make your ears happy, if I can use that phrase.
So remember I mentioned about understanding the job description, yeah? So when you're responding to such a question, you're essentially referencing the roles and responsibilities that that job requires. And so you can talk about some of the things you have done and how that has prepared you to be able to take on this role or the role that you're applying for. And you could talk about it from like a skills perspective. If the role requires, someone who can I saw someone who's done data science or data analytics in the chat. You can talk about some of the projects you've done in the past and how that has prepared you to be able to take on additional roles that or projects that require crunching data. And you can talk about some of the tools that you're familiar with. If it's an accounting role, you can talk about what you've done in the past that prepares you or that is aligned to what the roles and responsibilities and the skills required for that role are. So if it's aligned, then what you've done versus what is on the job description, that gives you a good foundation to have that conversation. So you can reference some of those examples. You can even feel free to add an example, like when I worked for BrighterMonday, I worked on 2 roles, and in those 2 roles I was able to fill them with this type of companies, because then you're talking about your track record, because people really, when you're talking about your experience, it's important to like really show that you've done what you've done in the past. If possible, give numbers. So when you talk about fitness to a profile, talk about what you've achieved and then how that relates, or what you've done and how that relates to the role that you're applying for. That's a very good benchmark to know that you're advancing that conversation in a way that makes sense to the person who's interviewing. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much. Also, just hold on to that. If you can respond also to this, is it okay to admit you do not know how to use some softwares maybe, but add that you're a quick learner and can adapt to using the new software, for instance, and also address on how can someone deal with anxiety?
Okay. So on the software bit, the beauty of where we are at currently, and at least the ones who are, at least maybe 0 to 3 or 4 years of experience currently, you've
This one,
technically
I can't
been,
step out. I'm the only one moving.
Joel, you can mute, please. Um, so essentially what we're saying is when it comes to the tools, you've been in a space where technology has been introduced way early, compared to maybe our time. We got to, interact with like Microsoft Word a bit later, probably in university or and this is Microsoft Word. We used to use different things before. So right now there's a lot of exposure to technology, which is brilliant. So you can reference technology that is related to what the ask is. So if, for example, the role is requiring you to be able to work with Office tools, Microsoft Office tools, emailing software. You can say, you've used Google Mail or Gmail, which is essentially an email management system, and you can adapt to any other tool that is related. You can talk about if the role requires you to understand QuickBooks, if it's accounting, you can say that you understand how to use Excel, and you're willing to learn how to use QuickBooks because you already understand the principles of accounting and you've already utilized an example like Excel, and you can crunch numbers there, so you can be able to learn quickly. So even if you're saying that you're a quick learner, at least reference something that you've done that can easily transition you into the new system. If it's design tools for those who are graphic designers or digital marketers, you can talk about tools you've used in that space that prepare you for using the tools that will be required for this role. So don't walk into an interview blindly to say, you're being told that this role, it's a sales role and requires you to be able to know how to use a CRM tool. At least know what a CRM tool is, first of all. And you can say, I may not have used a CRM tool, but in the past, I have tracked deals using Excel. So you can play around with what you already know in terms of using tech, because you have the advantage of having been introduced to tech a bit earlier. So then that becomes like your leverage to that conversation or to that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. That has covered everything. I hope, Esther, your questions have well been answered. I already see some reactions. We'll delve into a bit more questions, but just before that, an interaction from the chat. If you are on this session, I want to use ones and zeros to just do a quick poll. You'll type on the chat. If you have a BrighterMonday account, type 1. If you don't have, type 0. Let's see. Let's go. 1, 1, 1. The ones are winning. If you don't have, feel free to just tell us. I see a 0, another one, another one. Interesting. So, another question will be, have you ever tried to optimize your CV using our CV review tool? If you do have, just do a 1 again. If you haven't experienced it, do 0. And also in that note, I'll also inform you that on BrighterMonday, you can get a free CV review with one of our tools. So I'm trying to just give a bit more about the platform, because I understand some people just know BrighterMonday is a place where we only apply for jobs. So we have a service called CV review. It's a free tool. So still, you go to BrighterMonday profile, go to CV services. Under there, there's a free CV review tool. So you just click on it, paste your CV, or rather upload your CV there, because I see a lot of zeros. So you haven't checked this out yet. That system will go over your CV because it's an ATS system. There's this question that people ask: is my CV ATS friendly? What does an ATS friendly CV look like? Go over to BrighterMonday, go to my CV services, go to free CV review, upload your CV. It will give you feedback on how that CV ranks in terms of weightage with the ATS. You remember Mr. Saka mentioned there are some CVs that they never get to see. because they are passed by a system and then they're just knocked out, right? So now that you know that, head over there and check out that tool. So I'm going to take a few more questions. There's something they're talking here about. Kindly say something about how to handle company criticism. I'm not sure what this actually means. I hope it's constructive criticism or something around that. Another question that I see we need also to go over is how do we address career gaps? Mr. Saka, if you can hear me, kindly take some of these questions or just the recent ones I've mentioned and give us a bit more insight on this. Over to you.
Thank you, Joel. Let me start with the career gaps. Some of the career gaps can be explained very easily. Some cannot. Let me start with the ones that can be explained easily. I have helped people secure positions who had gaps in their CVs. But looking at the CV, you want to talk to this person. So how you brand yourself will first earn you that opportunity to speak, because you have some experience, much as there could be a gap that we are looking for. So we will call you. But in the interview then, I would want to know and to hear from you what happened. I have had ladies who had to make a decision because they probably were working for an employer that could not come through for them. They took maternity leave. They decided to go raise the babies first before they can go back to career. We have such, and they have ended up getting jobs when they are able to explain themselves. If it is a gap that you cannot explain, there's a problem. And what gap is it? You just quit work to just go sit in the village. So when you ask, so what were you doing? And if you ask me, no one, unless if you have no intentions of going back to the job market, no one's CV should have a gap whatsoever. I know some of you are thinking, wait, but I got fired. Fine, you are fired. You may not be gainfully employed. Can you volunteer somewhere? Can you? That covers the gap. Okay, I will leave that there. But you should be able to justify why the gap. And again, some gaps are untold. I know of a few people who had gaps because they were working for an organization that was funded, and then the funds ran out, and they have been unable to secure another opportunity. I know of someone who's gone 3 years now, trying, knocking at doors, but nothing happening. And I had an interview with that person, and gladly took them for a position because I measured on what their skills and expertise had or what they were bringing onto the table, and not the gap, because some things are beyond our control and there's little we can do about it. So if you can explain your gap, really, that should not be a challenge. However, try and cover those gaps. Cover them with things like volunteering. And there was another question, can I volunteer for something that is not related to, can I add in my CV volunteer roles that are not related to the job you're applying? If they are helping cover that gap, please do. Why? Because you may have volunteered in a children's home and you are applying for a HR role in a corporate organization. Is there anything in your volunteering you learned that would help you in this job? 100%. It could be the soft skills that then you would bring out during the interview and say, that children's home engagement or volunteering helped me sharpen my skills in 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be soft skills, but they count for something. Because even when we're hiring, we're not just looking at the technical skills, the hard side of things, but even the soft ones. And so those are the kinds of things that would then still be relevant. So let's not discount those that are not directly linked to this job, because they could count for something, especially if they would help us fill a gap, then use it anytime. So that would be my response, Joel, when it comes to positions that, or rather CVs that have gaps, and how to go about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There are quite a number of questions around gaps, and you really given us more detail on how to just talk about gaps. I see Claire saying that was insightful. Thank you so much, Claire. Thanks for following. A number of people had the same questions. We have Brian. You call yourself just Brian with an interesting question. What's your take on using templated resumes? Do they affect ATS compliance? Mr. Saka, do they or
using
they
templates?
don't? Yes.
Templates in and of themselves are not bad. They are good, by the way, because they give some structure, some decency, some good appeal to your CV. ATS compliance would speak to the content in the CV, not the template or the layout. What have you put in there? So if it's skills, for example, the skills profile, what skills have you put in there? Do they align to the JD that was shared? Regardless of the template, it would work. So I think templates, we should not demonize them. They're okay. You can use templates. However, the content that goes into that CV is the deal breaker. That is what is either going to earn you a seat on that table or deny you one. So I wouldn't speak against them. I would encourage people to use them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll take this to Rose. You've been silent for a second. Fanuel has an interesting insight. They say someone once told them that in an interview, it's like a meeting of two liars. It all depends on how you package yours. So if you don't know something, are you just allowed to say, I don't know, or just lie to my teeth?
Well, I mean, if you don't know,
That's
you don't
interesting.
know. That's the very direct answer. Because the challenge is when you say you know, there'll be a follow-up question and another follow-up question. So are you able to sustain the lie is the question. And most of the time, if it's a technical question, if you don't know, you probably not be able to sustain that conversation. So I would say it's depending on what that question is, there are ways you could answer that speaks the truth without necessarily painting you in a bad light. Because I think the question behind that question would be, that there's that fear where you say I don't know, and that already disqualifies you from that interview or from that process. And I think you'd want to really be honest, because when you start the foundation of your role on lies, I mean, it will be so difficult to sustain that from a conversation perspective, to a skill perspective, to a credibility perspective in the long run. So if you don't know, like for instance, if I come and you're a designer and I ask you, do you know how to use Figma? Truly, if you don't even know what Figma is, where will you start? You know, just say I don't know, but I am open to learning. I have used other tools like ABCD, and I believe that I'll be able to catch on well with it. And that's okay to say. It's okay to say you don't know. But if you don't want to say it outrightly, you can say, I don't know. However, I have used these other tools and I can do this and this and that. So that's what I would say around that question of, you've called it a meeting of two liars. I don't think it's a meeting of two liars, but it's important to be, it's important to just tell your story as it is, and then wait for the feedback. Because what you don't want as well is when you are hired, that you actually have a bad experience as an employee. I don't think sometimes we think about the interview process, we think about the job search process, but we never think about when I do join, what does that look like? So you want your experience when you do join and you have your first 3 months of probation period, you want that to be successful. So part of that being successful is really laying a good foundation during your interview process to display that integrity, that honesty, and that ability to adapt in case it's a technology or a skill that you actually don't know. That's a long answer, but the short answer is no, don't lie.
Thank you for clarifying. You'll excuse Gen Zs in the building. Sometimes they tend to ask the hard questions the way they think they should be asked directly. Um, Quite interesting. So I'll love us to just um, slow down the pace as we try to unwind. But just before we close, I'll take one more question or two. One more question or two questions. This one will really help someone because I believe in the call, some of the people here have gone through this. What is the advice when it comes to applying for, say, a job that requires a degree and you're a diploma holder? And then there's this theory in Kenya. It's a demystifying thing that I've heard around. They say there are certain courseworks that will opt to go for a diploma holder rather than a degree holder because of certain hard skills are best learned at diploma level, and some are not learned at degree, or degree is more of kind of specializing into one area of study. How will you address such?
Can I take that?
Yeah, you can.
Sure.
So if the application or the ad said minimum qualification is a bachelor's degree, they have a reason they asked for it. So definitely, if you have a diploma and you're applying for that, the odds are against you. However, what is the worst that could happen if you apply and you don't have the qualification? Get a regret, right? Or maybe not get a response at all. No one is going to sue you for attempting. No one is going to follow you up for that. No. So should you apply? Please, by all means, go ahead and apply. We've had some stories out here of, in some instances, people have applied. They have the academic qualification, but they don't have the experience. And you have people that have applied, they have the experience, but they just do not have that single paper that we are looking for. We do our shortlisting, we do the interviews, and from all these guys that look qualified and have the degree that we're looking for, we don't seem to find a good fit. Sometimes we say, okay, let's give it a shot at this diploma guys and see. And you bring this diploma guy into the interview, they literally wow you. And you get to discover the reason why they probably do not have that diploma is not their doing. Maybe they just needed an opportunity that you're granting to them, then they can now go back and upskill. So nothing stops you from applying. Please apply. Apply. The worst that would happen is you'd get a regret, or someone will laugh at your application and say, Sasa, who are you? That's the worst they would do, really. Joel.
Thank you. That sheds some light into this because there's a bit of scenarios where even over at Brighter Monday, when you're trying to go over applications for a specific job and you find some interesting applicants or candidates who have very good skill set, they don't have that degree, they have a diploma, but maybe 2 or 3 years experience and hands-on skills. Even if you try to knock them off, you just kind of have to present them for the final interview. So that makes a lot of sense. And I believe if you ask that question, now you have the confidence, but ensure you're always trying to skill. You're upskilling, you're adding something to what you already know. And if you have that drive, indeed, it will point you to the right direction. We'll take this as, I guess, the last question, unless something else comes up. because I believe it's something of concern. So how do you go about career shift? Let's say your previous career, you had 3 years experience, but now you're moving on to a new career. Say you are shifting careers. Can you say you have 4 years of working experience, or you just start afresh? How do you go about such a scenario?
I raised my hand because I've had career shifts, not once. So, like I mentioned, my first training was fashion and interior design. I got into that space. I was doing fashion and interior design for a while. Then I got an opportunity to do a logistics job. I took it up and I did logistics, ended up doing distribution, ended up doing sales. I grew literally through that organization. I went in as casual and I quit as a trade development manager. I grew with no training in that. But then my interest had shifted. Now I really wanted to do HR. While I was doing logistics and distribution, I went back to school, equipped myself with the master's. I didn't feel like I understood HR. I went back, did my high diploma in HR, got the necessary certification, and I felt I knew HR. And then I needed now to transition from logistics, sales, and distribution into HR. And I did just that. And one of the easiest ways, if you are already employed and attached, is to make that switch within the organization. It's easier that way. I tried making it out, it didn't work, because guys out there are saying, I have the HR papers, but I don't have the actual HR experience. And no one wants to touch me for that reason. But in terms of work experience, I had, and in terms of academics, I had what was needed. So you should not hide that which was your past. To date, when people ask me about my experience, I still flaunt around my experience in fashion design. I talk about my experience in logistics, sales, and distribution. I talk about my HR experience. I talk about all that as experience. You know, when you just look at the technical side of things, then you miss the mark, because even when you're working, much as it could be a different career line, like I mentioned, soft skills are being developed. Emotional intelligence is being developed. Many good things are coming out of that experience that you can still apply even in this new setting. So really, career change should not scare you. Go for it. Just be sure to carry what would be helpful from one career to the other. And if you can, please make those switches within a space that is easy. But trying to do that outside of that entity would be akin to looking for a mallet to kill a mosquito. Joel.
Wow.
Before Joel, you go, I can add as well. I also did a career shift. And one of the things that I had to admit to myself is, just as what the person who asked that question was saying, at the point where I made the transition, I had about 8 years of experience in the tech world. So I had done different things. I had done business development. I had done project management. Since my background is actually computer science, I'd actually even done coding. So that was my experience. And when I was making this transition, obviously there are certain skills, what we call transferable skills that Mr. Saka is talking about. So there are those transferable skills that I'm bringing to this new role. And the truth of the matter is when I became a recruiter or I started doing recruitment, there's a point where I had 1 year of experience in recruitment, even though I had worked for 9 years. And that's something I had to admit to myself. So I think a good mindset to have when you're doing a career shift is to actually say, I have had this number of years of work experience, but at some point I will almost start not from scratch. I'll have a bit of leverage in terms of the skills I have, but I know I'll be starting from a point of known to unknown, because when you're joining an organization or when you're within the same organization and you move departments, you're starting from, like, you have the skills but you don't have the actual technical experience, and you're going to build that, and you have to be okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with starting from that point, and then growing from there, because I believe that life is not linear. And there are experiences that you have in your workplace or opportunities that will come your way where you imagined that when you're leaving campus that you're going to be a developer, or you're going to be a project manager, or you're going to be a marketing head somewhere. But your first few 2 to 3 years are probably not going to be that. Then you ask yourself, how can I maximize where I am at right now in my my formative years in employment so that I can become that marketing manager or that head of business or that CEO in future. What can I do now that can build the skills I need to be able to transition at some point? And sometimes you actually don't know. I think I saw a question that asked, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what my career will look like. And that's okay. It's whatever you have right now in terms of opportunity, in terms of a job, how can you leverage that opportunity to grow your skills? And then you move from there step by step, because sometimes careers are not very linear as we imagine them to be.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Indeed, this is a conversation that can go over and over and over. We'll really have loved to continue. But I believe so far what has been shared by our panelists, Rose Mende and Chris Saka, was helpful and insightful. And we look forward to you coming on to the next one. Mr. Saka, very insightful nuggets from you. Rose, industry experience, uncomparable. I can see already we're getting feedback. Thanks for the insightful session. That is Linda. We have Esther saying the webinar was very insightful. Derek saying amazing session. Kudos to everyone who gave us their time. Any last words from Mr. Saka? Give us some of your last words before we just wrap this up.
There is an African proverb that says, you do not wait for the second chance to make the first impression. You may not have that second chance. So that then means whatever you do, that first instance, give it your best shot. And guess what that first instance is? That application, that cover letter, that CV. That's the first time as a recruiter I am engaging with you. You cannot, in that first instance, when you're, and allow me to use this crazy example, when you're trying to woo a girl, you cannot in your first instance tell her, by the way, I come from a community of night runners. That's my parting shot, Joel. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Some relate to that. I can see some reactions. Thank you so much. Indeed, you've been very insightful. We thank you for your contribution. Rose, any last words from you?
Yeah, so I would say number one, I know that for those who are in the job search space, this is the season where you're actually actively job hunting. I know it can be discouraging, but just to sort of like add to what Sakwa has mentioned, um, don't give up. And the shot you have to apply, do a good job. Make that cover letter really amazing. Make your CV really amazing and talk about you, because you're the one who fully understands your story in terms of the things you've done, your achievements. Make sure you write that and speak it out loud. But also at this stage of your career, when you're fresh from campus or you've just had like 3 to 4 years of experience or 2 years of experience, this stage of your career, your focus is a lot on building your skills development, building your work ethic. Are you reliable? Are you someone who's always on time? Do you deliver? Do you deliver on time? Are you someone who follows through what they've been asked? Are you dependable? Understand that there's a really big picture. So how are you building those small building blocks to build to bring you to a place where you can say, I have 8 years of experience and it's like solid years of experience. And really remember that your relationships along the way matter. So treat the people who you work with well, and just do a good job and be excellent wherever you are, because that could be the launch pad to your next step. Those would be my parting shot.
Thank you so much, Rose. Indeed, you've also been very insightful. We appreciate your contribution to the conversations. And just to wrap it up before we close, here are just some of the 3 takeaways that you really need to pay attention to. Just know that your CV is the first impression, so make it count, like Sako has said. Structure it clearly, tailor it to the role, and highlight the impact, not just the duties. When it comes to interviews, confidence comes from preparation. So we've already gotten highlights on how to prepare for interviews, so make it count. When you're thinking about salaries, negotiating your salary is not rude, but you are right also as well. So just know your value, do your benchmarking, and also practice on how you can phrase your expectations in a nice way. So that will be all from us. Remember, it's been this one has been brought to you courtesy of Brighter Monday. Head over to brightermonday.co.ke. Ensure you signed up. If you're signed up as a job seeker, ensure you leverage the tools we have. We have the AI career tool. We have the CV review, and we have courses, lots of courses over there. Make sure you go over the courses, get your certificates. All the courses are free. For the career tool, it will leverage, you can leverage on it to create your CV, create your cover letter, do mock interview, salary negotiation, and stuff like that. Ensure to just consume everything that is on there for free. I'll say this has been a very awesome session. Remember, we've also been our great partners from CHRM, that is the College of Human Resource Management. They've been great partners in the past few years. We've been working with them. Big shout out to everyone from CHRM and Brighter Monday. We're looking forward to more greater sessions. So looking forward to more of this. Thank you. I'll call it an evening for now. I'll close it at that. Thank you for being with us. It's been insightful. Asanteni sana and good night from all of